Braun. He is a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto. Aurel, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about the state of Ukraine's economy right now. This has been going on, what, about eight or so months. How is Ukraine holding up?
It has encountered enormous difficulties. The losses have been devastating. There has been mass exodus from cities. So you have both an external and an internal refugee problem. But despite that, they have incredibly high morale. They are getting help from the West. They need $4 to $5 billion a month. So funds are coming. They require more. But so far, they have retained the capacity to hold morale high and to have the population support the government.
Yeah, if you think of all the businesses that have been shut down, the infrastructure devastation. Now, what more does the country need to keep it afloat? The IMF is considering another $1.3 billion. How critical would this be, and do you think the IMF will come through?
More than likely, the IMF will come through because many of the key partners of the IMF will push for that. It is a significant sum of money, but of course Ukraine needs more. But by the IMF giving this money and basically going through an evaluation that Ukraine is worthy of these funds, it inspires confidence in the case of other donors or those who trade with Ukraine. And I think, therefore, there's a kind of multiplier effect.
What kind of frustration do you think that Vladimir Putin is feeling right now, especially with the latest sanctions on Russia and the European market for Russian oil simply drying up?
Undoubtedly, he must understand that he has not achieved his goal, so he keeps reshuffling the deck. And now, from this special military operation, which is a euphemism for war, he has moved to a partial mobilization, which in fact is more and more a general mobilization, where several 100,000 Russian citizens who are eligible for the draft have voted with their feet, as your broadcast showed, and have gone to other countries. So he's trying all sorts of measures. This annexation and the not too subtle threat of using some kind of nuclear response have not worked so far. Ukraine has not caved in. They continue to take territory. And therefore, the sanctions, which by themselves would never lead to a collapse, I think would have been unrealistic to expect that, but they do have a cumulative, a corrosive effect, and together with the feet on the ground, these all put the Putin government in a very difficult situation.
Aurel, you also talked about that call-up, but we know that more than 270,000 Russians have fled into Kazakhstan as well as Georgia. Now, Russia's response to everything that is going on, Putin keeps referring to the elections to seize Ukrainian territory, the elections that virtually much of the world is simply calling a sham, and we clearly know the Ukrainian government believes that that is going to basically help their cause as they move forward.
Well, we know from history that bullets and ballots do not mix well, and therefore there is no credibility just about anywhere regarding these referenda. It may very well backfire. It makes the Ukrainians more angry. It diminishes Russia's credibility. And the sanctions also create a situation where Russia needs to get supplies from elsewhere. It is not just a matter of denying Russia the ability to sell their goods, but also to purchase also the essential goods from the West. So they are going to put pressure on other partners, and that creates problems. So Russia becomes a more difficult partner to allies or those who want a good relations with Russia. There's also very significant reputational damage. Russia used to be thought of as a reliable supplier of energy. Now it has looked for new markets, but the problem is that if you are unreliable as an energy supplier in one area and in one circumstance, you may well be an unreliable partner in other areas. And I think in the long term, this is also extremely damaging to Russia's economic prospects.